Jamie, excited today to be talking to you about the privacy laws in Switzerland. We're going to touch a little bit as well on the data protection or data privacy protection. We think it's really quite interesting. I mean, as an American, a lot of these things don't exist in the US, whether they be kind of rules of thumbs of a certain financial institution. There's nothing that is quite like Switzerland when it comes to protecting the privacy. And I think, just to lead into it before I let you talk about the laws is, as an American, I was so fascinated by how those laws came about, and that the right to privacy exists in the Swiss the Swiss Constitution for individuals, and that the culture of banking privacy dates back to like the 1500s when Switzerland started private banking for the aristocrats of Europe, and that there was this well-found value of privacy already in the banking sector of Switzerland, but also in the people of Switzerland, so much so that they put it in their constitution, that the individual would have right to their privacy. And, then to learn that they enshrined it as a law, punishing institutions, financial institutions, for any kind of privacy breach is that next step. And I'll let you kind of talk about how that came about and what banking privacy is.
Yeah, absolutely. When we talk to our US clients or people interested in Swiss banking, the question of privacy often comes up, or it is one of the reasons why they know Switzerland, because it is so well known for its privacy and also neutrality. And there are several aspects to this. And I think the foundation of it all is really the culture of privacy that we have. It is part of our DNA to be discreet, and it's something that's very important to us. So as you already alluded to, as a financial services employee or as a bank employee, you can go to jail for up to 5 years if you disclose the information of your banking client. So that's something that's quite essential. That's a law that came about during the time of the Second World War. It was also a law that protected the wealth of the Jews that were fleeing Germany, or the Nazi Germany. And it's something that's still valid today. And I think there's a lot of misconceptions about the topic, because we had this US-Swiss tax dispute about 15 years ago that changed the way how in reality or practice the law is being applied, but it still is very much valid. It's Article 47, and it is as valid today as it was 20 or 100 years ago. What has changed, obviously, is that the privacy protection is not extended towards the IRS. So your account will not be hidden from tax authorities. That's not something that we do in Switzerland. You will have to report the account and pay taxes on it, but you will have a lot more privacy protection towards anyone else in Switzerland versus the US. So on top of the bank secrecy law that we already covered and the culture that we also have a National Data Protection Privacy Act that makes sure that we, not just the financial services industry, but every company actually adheres to the data of their clients with the highest level of care. So you're not allowed to gather or sell data without the knowledge of your clients, which is something that is handled very differently in the US. To my knowledge, there's no federal law that protects client information and client data. So I think those are a lot of the different aspects and reasons that come together that make Switzerland one of the premier jurisdictions for offshore wealth management. Because us being a small country of just 8 million people, or 9 million now, in the meantime, we are still the leading hub for attracting foreign assets into the country. And I think our privacy is one big reason for that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when you think about the amount of privacy that is breached in the US, and especially in terms of the data, whether you're a financial institution or not, but there's been multiple cases of US financial institutions sending data of clients. Maybe it wasn't name, maybe it wasn't exactly how much the money was on an account, but it was the information of how that account was acting or reacting. And companies send that to the big corporations or the big hedge funds, the big traders. They just purchased it, a method of exchange, so that they could not front run, but understand how everyone's reacting and buying things, so that they could go in and make their investing a little bit easier because they have that information. And that's just something that simply doesn't exist here because it's punishable by law.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's something that a lot of people don't really take into consideration when they see how cheap brokerage solutions are in the US. It's like there's this saying, if you don't pay for it, you're not the customer, you're the product. And I think that doesn't just go for social media, it also goes for financial service offerings, where in Switzerland you pay a little bit more than what you might be used to in the US, but you also get that back in the value and the safety and the privacy that you're getting. And what you have now described, I find a really interesting example of like how the business models are different, but also the mentality of the employees are very different. When I started working at a large bank here in Credit Suisse a long time ago, the very first thing that everyone told me on day one is to never share any information with anyone under any circumstances. And I had to do like webinars and I had to do like trainings to just make sure that I understand that I will not share any information. And then when we talk to banks in the US, sometimes clients ask us to help them with the international wire transfers. And I had experiences myself where I just called them, was like, hey, it's Jamie from Switzerland. I'm the new Swiss wealth manager of this person. I just want to help with the wire transfer. And the person was like, okay, great. Thanks, Jamie. And just helped me get the transfer done. And I was just absolutely amazed, because that would be a federal crime in Switzerland,
Yeah.
but it also would just never happen. You always have to identify yourself, and there's no real social engineering to get around it here, because it just has been ingrained into people so much, and the penalties are so severe that you are not going to pry any information out of any employee here in Switzerland.
No, it's just it's the number one thing to immediately get blocked if you bring up. If someone were to call our office and say, hey, I need to know information about so and so, it'd be like, I don't know what you're talking about. You might have the wrong phone number.
Yeah.
It's fascinating to me to think of the openness of a lot of information in the US. I remember listening to a commercial in the US when I was back visiting my family, of a bank not admitting but apologizing to selling client data. And this is on the radio. Like, yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, so I think privacy protection is certainly something to keep in mind when picking a safe jurisdiction for your nest egg. And Switzerland has a lot to offer in that regard. So Thanks for the
Absolutely.
conversation, Jess.
Yep. Thanks, Jamie.